My name is Lauren, and I am 27 years old. I never imagined finding $30,000 missing from my account right before my birthday. I worked hard as a financial analyst in Chicago, always helping my parents despite setting boundaries. When I confronted them, my dad snapped, "The family needed it more." My mom laughed, saying I could celebrate alone. Their betrayal shattered everything I believed about family. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever had family betray your trust. Growing up, financial stability was something I could only dream about. My childhood home in Springfield was filled with stress about money, especially after my father Thomas lost his accounting job when I was 14. My mother Diane took on multiple waitressing jobs, but it was never enough to cover our basic needs. I still remember the day I started my first job at 16, working weekends at the local grocery store. While other kids my age were hanging out at the mall, I was stocking shelves and saving every penny. By senior year of high school, I was working 30 hours a week while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. My parents never directly asked for my paycheck, but their expectant looks when bills arrived made it clear where my money needed to go. "Lauren, you always were our practical one," my mother would say, accepting the money I offered for the electricity bill. "Your brother just never had your sense of responsibility." My older brother James moved out at 18 and rarely kept in touch. Now I understand why he distanced himself. Back then, I thought he was selfish, abandoning our struggling family. Despite working so many hours, I threw myself into academics. Education was my ticket out my chance at financial security. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Peterson, was the first person who saw my potential beyond my circumstances. "Lauren, with your grades and determination, you could get a full scholarship," she told me during my junior year. "Let me help you with applications." Thanks to her guidance, I earned a full academic scholarship to Northwestern University. The day the acceptance letter arrived, my parents had mixed reactions. "College is expensive even with a scholarship," my father remarked. "How will we manage without your income?" My mother quickly added, "Of course we want you to go, sweetie. We will figure something out." I spent 4 grueling years at Northwestern, double majoring in finance and economics while working 2 part-time jobs. I lived on campus during the week and came home on weekends to give my parents money. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, but my determination never wavered. My roommate Ashley couldn't understand my devotion to my family. "Lauren, your parents are adults. They should be supporting you through college, not the other way around." I defended them fiercely. They would help if they could. Times are just tough right now. After graduating with honors, I landed a position at Meridian Financial Group in Chicago, one of the top firms in the Midwest. My starting salary was 3 times what my parents made combined. I moved into a modest apartment in Chicago, 45 minutes from my parents, and continued sending the money every month. At first, it was just helping with utilities and groceries. Then came car repairs, medical bills, and home maintenance. Each time the amount increased, I told myself it was temporary. They were my parents, after all, the people who raised me. How could I enjoy financial success while they struggled? By my 25th birthday, I was sending them $2,000 monthly, while trying to build my own savings and retirement funds. My financial advisor, Jordan, warned me about the unsustainability of the arrangement. "Lauren, you cannot be their retirement plan," he said during our quarterly meetings. "At this rate, you will never achieve your own financial goals." Taking his advice, I had a difficult conversation with my parents, explaining that I needed to reduce my financial support to $1,000 monthly. I offered to help them create a budget and find ways to increase their own income. "We are too old to start over," my father said dismissively. "Your mother has arthritis, and no one wants to hire someone my age." My mother added emotionally, "After everything we did for you growing up, this is how you repay us." Their guilt tactics worked. I continued sending the full amount while also covering any emergencies that arose with alarming frequency. Deep down, I knew something was wrong with the dynamic, but family loyalty kept me trapped in the cycle. As my 27th birthday approached, I decided to finally do something special just for me. Nothing extravagant, just a weekend trip to New York City to see a Broadway show and enjoy some fine dining. When I mentioned my plans during Sunday dinner at their house, both parents seemed supportive. "You work so hard, sweetie. You deserve a nice birthday," my mother said, patting my hand. Just make sure to take plenty of pictures for us." My father even raised his glass in a toast. "To our successful daughter, we are so proud of you." Their words warmed my heart. Maybe they were finally seeing me as an independent adult with my own needs and dreams. I left their house that evening feeling lighter than I had in years, excited about my upcoming celebration and the positive shift in our relationship. Little did I know that behind their supportive smiles, they were already planning to betray my trust in the most devastating way possible. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I was at my desk finishing a quarterly analysis when I remembered I needed to make dinner reservations for my birthday trip to New York. The shows were already booked, but I wanted to secure a table at Lumiere, an exclusive French restaurant I had been dreaming about for years. During my lunch break, I opened my banking app to check my available credit before making the reservation. What I saw made my stomach drop. My main credit card was maxed out at its $30,000 limit. The balance had been under $2,000 the previous week. "This has to be a mistake," I muttered frantically, scrolling through recent transactions. The list seemed endless: Best Buy, Apple Store, Home Depot, Nordstrom, Delta Airlines, and dozens of smaller purchases, all made in or near my parents' town over the past 4 days. My hands trembled as I switched to my savings account. The $20,000 I had painstakingly saved over 3 years was gone, transferred out just yesterday. I immediately called the credit card company, my voice shaking as I reported potential fraud. "Ms. Miller, these purchases were made using the physical card issued to an authorized user on your account," the representative explained. "According to our records, you added Diana Miller as an authorized user 2 years ago." My mind flashed back to when my mother needed to purchase a specialized mattress for her back problems. I had added her as an authorized user for that single purchase, intending to remove her afterward. Somehow, in the chaos of work deadlines, I had forgotten. "Can you freeze the account immediately?" I asked. "Certainly, Ms. Miller. No further charges will be authorized. Would you like to dispute these transactions?" I hesitated, the full reality sinking in. "Not yet. I need to speak with the authorized user first." After ending the call, I sat in stunned silence. My mother had systematically drained my account and maxed out my credit card. The betrayal was too enormous to process. I tried calling both parents, but neither answered. Without thinking further, I told my boss I had a family emergency, grabbed my purse, and headed for the parking garage. The 5-hour drive to my parents' house passed in a blur of shock, confusion, and building anger. How could they do this to me? What could possibly justify stealing $50,000 from their own daughter? As I pulled into their driveway, around 7 in the evening, I noticed several unfamiliar cars parked along the street. Then I saw it, the gleaming new Ford F-150 truck in the driveway, still with temporary tags. A truck my father had been talking about for months, always lamenting he could never afford it. Through the living room window, I could see unusual activity inside. My legs felt weak as I approached the front door, which was unlocked. Walking in, I was greeted by the sight of at least 15 people in the living room. Many I recognized as extended family and my parents' friends. They were gathered around a massive new 82-inch television, drinking and laughing. The living room had been completely refurnished with leather sofas and recliners I had never seen before. My Aunt Jean spotted me first, her smile faltering at my obviously distressed expression. "Lauren, what a surprise. I thought you were tied up with work this week," she said, drawing attention to my arrival. My mother emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of appetizers. She froze momentarily upon seeing me before forcing a bright smile. "Lauren, sweetheart, we weren't expecting you," she exclaimed, setting down the tray and approaching me with open arms. I stepped back, avoiding her embrace. "Mom, I need to speak with you and Dad. Now, in private." My father appeared from the backyard, a new grill spatula in hand. "Lauren, is everything okay?" "Kitchen, now," I managed to say through clenched teeth. Once we were alone in the kitchen, which I noticed was filled with new appliances, still bearing partial price tags, I pulled out my phone and displayed the credit card statement. "Explain this," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Explain how $50,000 disappeared from my accounts in 4 days." My mother glanced at my father, something unspoken passing between them. He straightened his shoulders, his expression hardening. "The family needed it more than you did, Lauren," he said flatly. "Your cousin Patrick lost his job. Jean needed help with medical bills. And frankly, we deserve to upgrade a few things around here after years of struggling." I stared at him in disbelief. "You stole from me! You took money I worked for without asking. That is theft and identity fraud." My mother laughed dismissively, waving her hand as though I was being dramatic. "Oh, please, family helps family. You can afford it with your fancy job, so you have to postpone your little birthday trip. You can celebrate alone next month. We had better plans for that money." Through the kitchen doorway, I could see several family members had moved closer, pretending not to eavesdrop, but clearly listening. My cousin Patrick looked particularly uncomfortable, averting his eyes when I glanced his way. "Better plans," I repeated, my voice rising slightly. "You stole my money for a party, for a truck, for a television. Do you have any idea how hard I worked for that money? How many hours of overtime, how many missed social events, how many sacrifices? We sacrificed for you your entire life." My father countered, his voice taking on the righteous tone he always used when feeling defensive. "We gave you everything. This house was always open to you. We supported your education." "I put myself through college," I nearly shouted, then forced myself to lower my voice. "I worked 2 jobs while studying. I paid for everything myself, and then I spent years supporting you financially." My mother rolled her eyes. "Always so dramatic about money. It is just money, Lauren. Family is what matters." In that moment, something broke inside me. The years of guilt manipulation and one-sided giving crystallized into perfect clarity. These people were not family in any meaningful sense of the word. They were users who saw me as nothing more than a resource to exploit. With a calm that surprised even me, I looked them both in the eyes and said, "If that is what family means to you, then don't ever call me again." I turned and walked out, aware of the sudden silence that fell over the gathered guests. My Aunt Jean reached for my arm as I passed, but I gently pulled away. No one spoke as I walked to my car, got in, and drove away from the house I would never again call home. The 20-minute drive to the nearest hotel passed in a blur. I parked in the far corner of the lot, turned off the engine, and finally allowed myself to break down. Sobs racked my body as the full impact of the betrayal washed over me. These were my parents, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, protect me from harm, not cause it deliberately. Through my tears, I called the one person I knew would understand. Amanda had been my best friend since college, the sister I never had by blood, but found through loyalty and genuine care. "Lauren, what is wrong? You sound terrible." Her concerned voice came through the car speakers. "They stole from me, Amanda." I managed between sobs. "My parents emptied my savings and maxed out my credit card. $50,000 gone." "What, are you serious?" The shock in her voice mirrored my own initial disbelief. "Where are you right now?" "In a hotel parking lot near their house. I confronted them and they acted like they were entitled to my money, like I was being selfish for being upset." "Do not move. I am coming to get you," she said firmly. Amanda lived in Indianapolis, about 3 hours from my parents' town. "Get a room, try to rest, and I will be there as soon as I can." After ending the call, I checked into the hotel and collapsed onto the bed. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from various family members who had witnessed the confrontation. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and began reviewing my financial accounts more thoroughly. What I discovered turned my sorrow into something colder and harder. This was not a one-time theft born of desperation. This was calculated, systematic exploitation that had apparently been going on for months. Small transfers from my savings account, $2,500 here, $3,000 there, disguised as recurring investments I had set up years ago. Credit card charges for business purchases that my father claimed were for his new consulting work, which I now realized was completely fabricated. My mother had been slowly increasing the amount she borrowed for various emergencies, none of which I could now verify were real. I found emails my mother had carelessly left open on the family computer during my last visit, which had synced to her phone that was linked to my Apple account. Messages between my parents discussing how to handle Lauren and extract more money. They referred to me as their golden goose and laughed about how easily I believed their stories of financial hardship. Lauren always was a softie, my mother had written. Tell her your blood pressure medication costs went up again, and we will cover next month's property tax easily. More digging revealed something that made my blood run cold. My parents had told our extended family that I had voluntarily offered to pay for my cousin Melissa's entire wedding. They had apparently collected money from various family members under the pretense that I would match their contributions, money that had clearly gone into their own pockets. Worse still, I discovered loan documents in my email spam folder requesting confirmation. My parents had somehow obtained enough of my personal information to apply for loans in my name. They had forged my signature on documents, making me a co-signer on a remortgage of their house and on the loan for my father's new truck. As the evidence mounted, I began taking screenshots and saving documents to a secure folder. This was beyond family taking advantage of my generosity. This was criminal identity theft and fraud. Around midnight, I received a notification from my credit monitoring service showing a hard inquiry from another lender. Even after being confronted, they were still attempting to exploit my credit. That was when I discovered they had booked a 2-week Caribbean cruise using my credit card, departing the following month, the same month as my birthday. When Amanda arrived shortly after 1 in the morning, she found me surrounded by financial statements, loan documents, and pages of notes detailing the extent of the theft. "Lauren, this is so much worse than I imagined," she said, reviewing my findings. "This is not a family disagreement. This is criminal activity." "I know," I replied, my voice hollow. "I just cannot believe they would do this to me, after everything I have done for them." Amanda sat beside me and took my hands in hers. "Listen to me. This is not your fault. You were being a good daughter. They took advantage of your kindness and generosity. But now you need to protect yourself. How if I report them, they could go to jail. Despite everything, I do not know if I can do that to them." "Let us take this one step at a time," Amanda said, her lawyer mind already organizing a plan. "First, we document everything. Tomorrow, we meet with my friend Jackson, who specializes in financial fraud. Then we determine your options." For the first time since discovering the theft, I felt a small measure of control returning. I was not alone. And while I could not undo what my parents had done, I could decide what happened next. That night, curled up in the hotel bed with Amanda sleeping on the pull-out sofa, I allowed myself to feel the full spectrum of emotions: betrayal, anger, grief, and finally, as dawn broke, a steely resolve. My parents had made their choice. Now I would make mine. The next morning, running on minimal sleep and maximum determination, Amanda and I met her law school friend Jackson for breakfast at the hotel restaurant. I had spent the early hours organizing all my documentation chronologically and making notes of every unauthorized transaction I could identify. "This is quite extensive," Jackson said, reviewing the folder I had prepared. His expression grew increasingly grave as he turned each page. "Lauren, I want to be very clear about something. What your parents have done constitutes identity theft, credit card fraud, forgery, and potentially elder financial abuse, given that they targeted you systematically." "Elder abuse, I am only 27, I pointed out. "The legal definition varies by state, but the systematic exploitation by family members follows the same pattern. The law recognizes that familial relationships can be exploited for financial gain," he explained. "What we need to determine now is how you want to proceed." Jackson laid out my options with clinical precision. I could file a police report immediately, which would likely result in criminal charges against both parents. I could pursue civil action to recover the stolen funds. Or I could attempt to handle it privately, though Jackson strongly advised against this last option, given the extent of the fraud. "There is something else you should know," he added, pulling out his tablet. "I ran a preliminary credit check with your permission from the information you provided. They have opened 3 additional credit cards in your name in the past 2 months. The combined available credit is $48,000, and all three are nearly maxed out. The room seemed to tilt slightly as this new information sank in. So we are talking about nearly $100,000 now, not $50,000 at minimum, Jackson confirmed. And there is more. The home equity loan they took out with you as co-signer, the one you never actually signed for, it is for $85,000. The truck is financed for $62,000. All told, they have committed you to approximately $250,000 in debt. Amanda gasped beside me. That would take decades to pay off, even with your salary. And it would completely destroy your credit rating, Jackson added. Lauren, I do not want to pressure you, but time is critical here. The longer these fraudulent accounts remain open, the more difficult it will be to disentangle yourself. While they spoke, I was mentally cataloging my parents' assets. The house they had refinanced so many times, it held minimal equity. The new truck that was clearly financed mostly on paper with my stolen credit. The new furniture, electronics, and appliances purchased with my money. The planned cruise and other luxury items. What would happen to them? I asked quietly. If I report this as fraud. Jackson's expression softened slightly. Best case scenario for them, the creditors would repossess items purchased fraudulently. The home equity loan would likely go into default. They would face significant financial consequences and potential criminal charges. And if I do nothing, then you are legally responsible for all of this debt. Your credit is already severely damaged. It would take years, possibly a decade, to recover financially. I closed my eyes, thinking about the years I had already spent supporting them, believing I was helping family who loved me. I thought about my mother's laughter when confronted my father's entitled justification for stealing from me, the calculated, ongoing nature of their betrayal. I need to talk to my boss, I said, finally pulling out my phone. My supervisor, Julia, was understanding when I explained I was dealing with a financial emergency. As one of the firm's top analysts, I had accumulated significant goodwill and rarely took time off. Take the rest of the week, Lauren, she said. We will manage the Wilson portfolio in your absence. Just keep me updated. With that handled, I turned back to Jackson and Amanda. I need to understand exactly what my options are, not just legally, but practically. How do I protect myself without immediately involving the police? I need time to think about that step. For the next 3 hours, we developed a comprehensive strategy. First, I would file fraud alerts with all 3 credit bureaus and freeze my credit entirely. Next, I would contact each credit card company and financial institution involved to report the unauthorized transactions and begin the dispute process. For the loans and credit cards opened fraudulently in my name, I would need to file affidavits stating I never applied for or authorized these accounts. What about the mortgage and truck loan where they forged my signature as co-signer? I asked. Jackson's expression was grim. Those are more complicated. You will need to provide evidence that the signatures were forged, which may require filing a police report eventually. However, we can start by notifying the lenders of the suspected fraud and requesting all documentation they have on file. Can I remove myself as guarantor on those loans? If you can prove fraud, yes. The lenders would then have to pursue your parents directly for repayment. By early afternoon, I had made dozens of calls, filed numerous reports, and sent formal notifications to several financial institutions. The credit freeze was in place, preventing any new accounts from being opened in my name. I had provided preliminary information about the fraudulent accounts and transactions, with promises to follow up with signed affidavits. Now comes the hard part, Amanda said as we regrouped in the hotel room. Are you going to confront them again? With what we know now? I nodded slowly. I need to give them one chance to make this right. Not for them, but for me. I need to know I tried everything before taking steps that cannot be undone. And we decided that I would go alone, but Amanda and Jackson would wait nearby in case things escalated. I would present my parents with clear evidence of their fraud and offer them one opportunity to acknowledge what they had done and agree to a repayment plan. If they refused, I would proceed with formal fraud charges and let them face the consequences of their actions. As I drove back to my parents' house that evening, I felt a strange calm. Whatever happened next, I knew I was finally taking control of my own life and finances. The decision was no longer about what I owed my family, but about what I owed myself. When I pulled into my parents' driveway for the second time in 24 hours, I noticed even more new purchases had appeared. A set of expensive patio furniture was visible in the backyard, and what looked like landscaping equipment sat near the garage. The betrayal felt even more flagrant in the light of day. I knocked firmly on the front door rather than using my key. My mother answered, her smile faltering when she saw my expression. "Lauren, I was hoping you would come back so we could talk about yesterday," she began, her voice taking on the placating tone she always used when trying to manipulate me. "You were so upset, and we did not get a chance to explain properly." "I am here to talk," I replied evenly. "Is Dad home?" "In the den with his new computer?" she said, stepping aside to let me in. "We had a lovely party last night after you left. Everyone was asking about you." I ignored the attempted guilt trip and walked directly to my father's den. He was indeed at a new desk using what appeared to be a top-of-the-line gaming computer, complete with 3 monitors. "Lauren," he acknowledged without looking away from the screen. "Come to apologize for your outburst." "I have come with evidence," I said, placing my folder on his desk. "Evidence of identity theft, credit card fraud, loan fraud, and forgery. All committed by you and Mom against me." That got his attention. He turned slowly, his expression changing from dismissive to concerned as I began laying out documents one by one. "This is the credit card statement showing unauthorized purchases totaling $30,000. This is the bank statement showing unauthorized transfers from my savings account. These are the loan applications submitted in my name without my knowledge. This is the mortgage refinancing with my forged signature as co-signer." My mother had followed me into the room and now stood frozen in the doorway. "I have spent the day talking to banks, credit card companies, and financial institutions," I continued calmly. "I have frozen my credit, reported the fraud, and begun the process of disputing every unauthorized transaction and account." My father's face flushed with anger. "You had no right. That money was for family." "My money, my credit, my name, all taken without my permission," I countered. "That is theft, Dad. Criminal theft and fraud." "We gave you life," my mother interjected dramatically. "We raised you, fed you, clothed you. After everything we have done for you, this is how you repay us, by threatening us." I turned to face her, maintaining my composure, despite her escalating theatrics. "I am not threatening you. I am giving you one opportunity to acknowledge what you have done and make it right." "Make what right? We needed that money for the family. Your cousin Patrick lost his job, your Aunt Jean needed help with medical bills, the house needed repairs," my father argued. "The party I walked in on yesterday did not look like family emergency assistance. The cruise you booked for next month was not a necessary expense. The truck, the television, the furniture, the computer you are sitting at right now, these were not needs, they were wants. Wants you decided to fulfill by stealing from me." I laid 3 more documents on the desk. "These are your options. Option 1, you acknowledge the theft return. Everything purchased with my money. Sell what cannot be returned and agree to a repayment plan for the rest." "That is ridiculous," my father exploded. Standing up so quickly his chair rolled back and hit the wall. "We cannot possibly repay that much. Option 2, I continued, as if he had not spoken. "I file a formal police report today identifying both of you as the perpetrators of identity theft and fraud. The items purchased will still be repossessed, but you will also face criminal charges." My mother began to cry loud, theatrical sobs that had always worked to manipulate me in the past. "How could you do this to us? To your own parents?" "I did not do anything to you," I said, turning to face her. "You did this to yourselves when you decided to steal from me, and you did this to me, your daughter, who has supported you financially for years, despite having her own goals and needs." At that moment, the doorbell rang. My mother wiped her tears and went to answer it, clearly relieved for the interruption. I heard multiple voices in the entryway and recognized my Aunt Maria, my father's sister, along with my Uncle James and several cousins. "Thomas, Diana, we need to talk," Maria said firmly as she entered the den. She stopped short when she saw me. "Lauren, good. You should be part of this conversation too." My father looked confused. What is this about Maria? It is about the money you have been collecting from family members supposedly on Lauren's behalf. Uncle James said, his expression stern. Maria called me this morning after Lauren left last night. The things we overheard made us start asking questions. My cousin Patrick stepped forward, looking deeply uncomfortable. Aunt Diana told me Lauren had offered to cover my mortgage for 3 months while I was between jobs. She collected $4,000 from me as my contribution to a family emergency fund that Lauren was supposedly matching. But when I thanked Lauren last night, she clearly had no idea what I was talking about. One by one, family members revealed similar stories. My Aunt Jean had been told I was helping with her medical bills, but had insisted on family contributions first. My cousin Melissa had been promised that I would pay for half of her wedding venue. In total, my parents had collected over $25,000 from family members using my name and false promises. My mother's fake tears dried up instantly as she realized she was being exposed on multiple fronts. Her expression hardened into something ugly and unfamiliar. You all turned my own daughter against me, and now you are ganging up on us too, she accused. After everything we have done for this family. What exactly have you done, Diana? Maria asked coldly. Besides take advantage of your daughter's generosity and lie to the rest of us. Thomas, I expected better from my own brother. My father seemed to deflate before our eyes, sinking back into his chair. For the first time, I saw a flicker of shame cross his face. We just got in over our heads, he muttered. The bills kept piling up. Lauren makes so much money we thought she would not even notice. $100,000, Dad, I said quietly. How could I not notice $100,000? And that does not include the loans you fraudulently obtained in my name. My Aunt Maria gasped. 100,000? Thomas, what have you done? Taking advantage of my parents' momentary discomfort, I placed the third document on the desk. Option 3. I will not file police charges immediately, but I will proceed with all fraud claims. I will remove myself as guarantor from all loans obtained fraudulently. I will dispute all credit card charges and demand repayment. Whatever happens to your finances as a result is not my concern. You would let them repossess the house? Where would we live? My mother demanded, her voice rising hysterically. You should have thought about that before remortgaging it with my forged signature, I replied evenly. I am giving you 24 hours to decide which option you prefer. As I turned to leave, my father called out, his voice suddenly old and defeated. Lauren, please, we are your parents. I paused at the doorway and looked back at him. Parents protect their children. They do not exploit them. You made your choice when you decided to steal from me. Now I am making mine. With those words, I walked out of the house I grew up in for what I knew would be the last time. Amanda and Jackson were waiting in a car down the street, and as I approached, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The confrontation had been painful, but necessary. I had given my parents the facts and options with witnesses present. What happened next was up to them. That night from my hotel room, I made the calls that would begin the formal separation of my finances from my parents. I removed the holds on the fraud claims I had initiated that morning. I contacted the mortgage company and truck loan provider to formally disavow the guarantees made in my name. I reported the credit cards opened fraudulently and provided documentation of the forgeries. One by one, I systematically cut the financial ties that had bound me to my parents for so long. With each call, each form submitted, I reclaimed a piece of my independence. By midnight, the process was well underway. The mortgage company confirmed they would be contacting my parents about the invalid guarantee. The truck loan provider initiated repossession proceedings based on the fraud report. The credit card companies began the process of investigating the unauthorized charges. I slept more peacefully that night than I had in years, knowing that while the road to financial recovery would be long, I had taken the first crucial steps. Whatever my parents decided to do with the options I had presented, I had already chosen mine, freedom from their manipulation and exploitation, whatever the cost. The week following my confrontation with my parents was a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and meetings with financial institutions. I extended my emergency leave from work to 10 days, working remotely when absolutely necessary. but focusing primarily on untangling the financial mess my parents had created. Amanda stayed with me for the first 3 days, her unwavering support giving me strength during the most difficult moments. When she had to return to Indianapolis for work, she made me promise to call her daily with updates. "You are not alone in this, Lauren," she reminded me before leaving. "You have people who care about you for who you are, not what you can provide." Jackson proved invaluable, guiding me through the complex legal process of disputing fraudulent accounts and documenting identity theft. He connected me with a financial advisor, specializing in credit recovery, who helped me develop a long-term plan for rebuilding my financial health. Meanwhile, a different kind of support emerged from an unexpected source. My Aunt Maria called 3 days after the confrontation. "Lauren, I want you to know that most of the family stands with you," she said firmly. "We had no idea what Thomas and Diana were doing. They have been telling everyone for years about how you insisted on helping them despite their protests." The story they painted was completely different from reality. Maria revealed that my parents had been living well beyond their means for years, creating an illusion of financial struggle, while actually spending lavishly when family wasn't watching. She had discovered shopping bags hidden in their garage from luxury retailers' receipts for expensive restaurants, and evidence of weekend getaways they had never mentioned to anyone. "I should have seen it sooner," she admitted. "The signs were there. The new clothes Diana always had while claiming they could barely afford groceries. The golf clubs Thomas bought last year, when he told everyone he could not afford his medication." This new information should have made me feel better, knowing that others could now see my parents for who they truly were. Instead, it only deepened my sense of betrayal. How long had they been manipulating not just me, but everyone around them? A week after my initial discovery, I received a notification from the bank handling my parents' mortgage. Without my guarantee, which had been obtained fraudulently, they were initiating foreclosure proceedings based on multiple missed payments my parents had concealed. Similarly, the truck loan company confirmed the vehicle would be repossessed within the week. The credit card companies were more complicated. While they acknowledged the fraud recovering the money would take time, the best they could offer was to remove the debt from my credit report while they pursued my parents for repayment. I had moved back to my apartment in Chicago, but found it difficult to slip back into my normal routine. My boss, Julia, noticed my distraction and called me into her office on my first day back. "Lauren, you have always been one of our most focused and dedicated analysts," she said gently. "But clearly something major is happening in your personal life. Do you want to talk about it?" To my surprise, I found myself telling her everything. The years of supporting my parents, the discovery of their theft, the ongoing process of untangling my finances from their fraud. I had been so private about my family struggles, carrying the burden alone for so long, that the relief of sharing it was overwhelming. Julia listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly concerned. When I finished, she reached into her desk drawer and handed me a business card. "This is Dr. Sarah Winters," she explained. "She is a therapist who specializes in family trauma and financial abuse. The firm works with her for executive counseling. I want you to call her, and the company will cover the sessions." "I do not need therapy," I protested automatically. "I need to fix my credit score and recover my money." "Lauren, what you have experienced is a profound betrayal by the people who were supposed to love and protect you," Julia said firmly. "The financial aspects can be addressed with time and expertise, but the emotional impact, that requires different support." Reluctantly, I agreed to call Dr. Winters, expecting little from the experience. To my surprise, our first session opened floodgates I hadn't realized were straining to burst. Years of guilt, obligation, and suppressed resentment poured out as I described my relationship with my parents. "What you are describing is a classic pattern of financial exploitation," Dr. Winters noted during our second session. "Your parents systematically trained you from adolescence to feel responsible for their financial well-being. They cultivated your guilt and manipulated your natural desire to help family." "But they are my parents." I said, the words sounding hollow even to my own ears. "Aren't children supposed to help their parents?" "There is a difference between mutual support among family members and systematic exploitation," she explained. Healthy families lift each other up when needed, with all members contributing according to their ability and circumstances throughout life. What your parents created was a one-way extraction of resources from you, their child, while giving nothing in return, not even basic respect for your boundaries or acknowledgement of your needs. These sessions became an anchor in the chaos of those early weeks. While I worked with financial experts to address the practical aspects of the situation, Dr. Winters helped me process the emotional fallout and begin setting healthier boundaries. At work, an unexpected ally emerged in my colleague Sydney, who overheard me discussing credit monitoring services on a phone call. Later that day, she stopped by my desk with coffee. "I could not help overhearing earlier," she said hesitantly. "My parents did something similar to me 5 years ago. Not as extensive, but the same pattern. If you ever want to talk to someone who has been through it, I am here." Our conversation over lunch that day was the first time I spoke with someone who truly understood the unique pain of family financial betrayal. Sydney shared her own journey of recovery and the steps she had taken to rebuild both financially and emotionally. "The hardest part for me was the isolation," she admitted. "People understand physical abuse or even emotional abuse from parents. But financial exploitation, most people just do not get it. They say things like, 'But they are your parents,' or 'Family is family,' without understanding how those ties can be weaponized." As the weeks passed, I began establishing new routines and connections. Amanda visited regularly. Sydney and I met for weekly dinners. Dr. Winters helped me process my grief and anger in our sessions. My Aunt Maria kept me updated on family matters, respecting my decision to maintain distance from my parents, while ensuring I did not lose connection with supportive relatives. The financial recovery progressed slowly but steadily. My credit score, which had plummeted to the low 500s, began to climb as fraudulent accounts were removed from my report. The credit card companies completed their investigations and officially absolved me of the fraudulent charges, though recovering the actual money remained uncertain. When my birthday arrived 1 month after the discovery of the theft, I found myself surrounded not by the luxurious New York experience I had originally planned, but by something far more valuable. Amanda, Sydney, and two other friends from work took me to dinner at a local restaurant, where my Aunt Maria surprised me by joining them. "We may not be the family you were born into," Amanda said, raising her glass in a toast, "but we are the family you chose and who chose you." That night, as I blew out the candles on a cake they had arranged, I made a silent wish not for financial recovery or justice against my parents, but for the strength to build a life defined by genuine connections, rather than obligation and exploitation. 6 months after the initial discovery, the tangible consequences of my parents' actions became clear. Their house was fully in foreclosure. The truck had been repossessed. Most of the luxury items they had purchased were gone, either returned repossessed or sold to cover immediate needs. According to my Aunt Maria, they had moved into a small apartment, and my father had taken a job at a local hardware store, while my mother worked part-time at a department store. They had made multiple attempts to contact me, first with angry accusations, then with tearful pleas, and finally with grudging apologies that still contained undertones of blame. I maintained my distance, responding only through Jackson when legal or financial matters required communication. The family dynamics had shifted permanently. Some relatives took my parents' side, repeating their narrative that I had abandoned them in their time of need. Others, having seen the evidence and pattern of exploitation, supported my decision to protect myself. The family had fractured along these lines, with holiday gatherings and celebrations now held separately. I mourned this loss, but Dr. Winters helped me recognize it as an inevitable consequence of setting healthy boundaries. "Not everyone will understand or support your journey toward health and self-respect," she explained. "That is their limitation, not yours." As the 1-year mark approached, I received an unexpected letter from my father. Unlike his previous communications, this one contained no accusations or demands. Instead, it held a simple acknowledgement of wrongdoing and an expression of regret that seemed for the first time genuine. "I have no right to ask for your forgiveness," he wrote. "What your mother and I did was unforgivable. We took advantage of your generosity, and betrayed your trust in the worst possible way. I am not writing to ask for reconciliation or financial help. I simply want you to know that I recognize the harm we caused, and I am truly sorry. He went on to explain that he and my mother had separated. He was in counseling trying to understand the choices he had made and the person he had become. My mother, he said, still refused to accept responsibility, insisting they had been entitled to what they took. I showed the letter to Dr. Winters, uncertain how to feel or whether to respond. "This is your choice, Lauren," she said. "Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation or allowing someone back into your life. It can simply be releasing the burden of anger for your own peace. Whatever you decide, make sure it serves your healing, not anyone else's expectations." After careful consideration, I sent a brief reply acknowledging his apology and wishing him well in his journey toward understanding and change. I made no promises of reconciliation or ongoing contact, maintaining the boundaries that now protected my well-being. By the time my 28th birthday arrived, my financial situation had stabilized. My credit score had recovered significantly, though not completely. I had moved to a smaller apartment to reduce expenses while rebuilding my savings. My career had advanced, with Julia recommending me for a promotion that recognized both my professional skills and the personal resilience I had demonstrated throughout the ordeal. For this birthday, I did take that trip to New York not as the extravagant celebration I had once planned, but as a meaningful milestone with Amanda and Sydney accompanying me. As we sat watching the Broadway show I had dreamed of seeing a year earlier, I reflected on the journey. The betrayal by my parents had shattered my understanding of family and trust. The financial damage had been substantial and would take years to fully recover from. But in rebuilding my life, I had discovered strengths I never knew I possessed, and connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I had learned that family is not defined by blood, but by actions, by consistent care and respect for boundaries. The people who now surrounded me, who had supported me through the darkest moments without expecting anything in return, were my true family. The financial loss had been painful, but the freedom gained was invaluable. Freedom from manipulation and guilt. Freedom to set boundaries and expect them to be respected. Freedom to build relationships based on genuine care rather than transaction. As the curtain fell on the show and the audience erupted in applause, I joined in wholeheartedly celebrating not just the performance, but the new life I had created from the ashes of betrayal. The journey had been painful, but the destination, a life of authentic connections and self-respect, was worth every difficult step along the way. It has been a full year since that fateful day, when I discovered my credit card maxed out and my savings emptied. A year of rebuilding reckoning and ultimately renewal. The journey to financial recovery continues, but the emotional healing has been the more profound transformation. The initial weeks after discovering my parents' theft were filled with practical matters. Freezing credit reports, filing fraud claims, disputing unauthorized transactions. These actions were necessary, but addressed only the surface of the damage. The deeper healing began in those therapy sessions with Dr. Winters, where I gradually untangled myself from decades of manipulation and guilt. Financial abuse leaves invisible scars, she told me during one particularly difficult session. Unlike physical bruises, these wounds do not show on the surface, which makes them easy to dismiss or minimize, but the trauma is just as real. Through our weekly meetings, I came to understand that my relationship with my parents had never been healthy. From my teenage years, they had systematically trained me to prioritize their needs above my own, to equate love with financial support, to feel guilty for any success I did not immediately share with them. The parent-child relationship should evolve as the child becomes an adult, Dr. Winters explained. Healthy parents take pride in their adult children's independence. They want to see them thrive and build their own lives, not remain permanent providers for the parents. This perspective helped me reframe the guilt that had plagued me in the early months. I was not abandoning my family by protecting myself. I was establishing the healthy boundaries that should have existed all along. With time, I also learned to recognize the warning signs I had missed for so long. The emotional manipulation when I tried to set financial limits, the constant emergencies that always seem to arise when I mention saving for my own goals, the dismissal of my needs as selfish or unnecessary compared to family obligations. These insights did not erase the pain of betrayal, but they helped me understand it was never my fault. I had been a loving, generous daughter. My parents' choices were about their own entitlement and lack of boundaries, not any failure on my part. The financial recovery progressed in small, steady steps. 6 months after filing fraud claims, my credit score had improved from the devastated low 500s to a more manageable 640. By the 1 year mark, it had climbed to 685, still below my previous excellent rating, but showing consistent improvement. The credit card debt was eventually removed from my record, though recovering the actual funds proved more complicated. In the end, I recovered about 60% of what was stolen through a combination of return purchases, insurance claims, and settlements with the financial institutions involved. My career became an unexpected source of healing. The focus required for financial analysis provided respite from the emotional turmoil, and my colleagues' support reminded me that professional relationships could be based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. Julia's mentorship proved particularly valuable. Having been through a similar experience with a sibling years earlier, she understood both the practical and emotional challenges I faced. Under her guidance, I took on projects that stretched my abilities and rebuilt my professional confidence. Sometimes the people who should love us the most hurt us the worst, she told me during a particularly difficult week. But that does not define what you deserve or what you can achieve. My relationship with extended family evolved in unexpected ways. The initial fracture slowly gave way to a new understanding, with most relatives eventually recognizing the pattern of exploitation that had occurred. My Aunt Maria became a bridge between worlds, keeping me connected to family events and milestones without pressuring me to reconnect with my parents. My mother never acknowledged her actions or offered any genuine apology. According to Maria, she maintained that I had betrayed the family by pursuing fraud claims and refused to accept any responsibility. She eventually moved in with my cousin Patricia, continuing the pattern of financial dependence, though apparently with more limited success. My father's journey was different. After our brief exchange of letters, he continued his counseling and joined a support group for people recovering from financial difficulties. He took full responsibility for his actions in family gatherings, never making excuses or attempting to shift blame. While we never fully reconciled, we established a distant, cautious communication that acknowledged the past without attempting to recreate the unhealthy dynamics that had defined our relationship for so long. The most profound healing came through building new relationships and strengthening existing ones based on mutual care rather than obligation. Amanda and Sydney remained steadfast supporters, never keeping score or expecting repayment for their emotional support. New friendships developed through work therapy groups and volunteer activities with a financial literacy program I joined to help others avoid exploitation. Through this volunteer work, I met others with similar experiences, including Jasmine, whose elderly parents had systematically drained her accounts while she cared for them, and Marcus, whose brother had stolen his identity to finance a gambling addiction. These connections helped me feel less alone in my experience and provided opportunities to transform my pain into support for others. The financial literacy program became a particular passion, teaching vulnerable individuals to recognize financial exploitation and protect themselves gave purpose to my experience. Each time I helped someone identify manipulation tactics or set financial boundaries, I reclaimed a piece of my own power. You have turned your pain into purpose, Dr. Winters observed during one of our now monthly check-ins. That is the most powerful form of healing. Last month, as my 29th birthday approached, I faced a decision. The financial recovery had progressed enough that I could afford a modest celebration. The question was not whether to celebrate, but with whom and how. In the end, I hosted a small gathering in my apartment with the people who had supported me through the darkest moments: Amanda, Sydney, Julia, my Aunt Maria, and several friends from work and the volunteer program. We shared a meal, laughed, and celebrated not just my birthday, but the journey of the past 2 years. During the gathering, my Aunt Maria pulled me aside with news about my parents. My father had found steady work and moved into his own apartment. My mother was struggling financially after my cousin Patricia had finally set boundaries against her exploitation. There was no request for help or reconciliation in this information, just an update Maria thought I should have. I thanked her for sharing but felt no obligation to respond or intervene. This simple moment, perhaps, more than any other, marked how far I had come. I could receive information about my parents without being pulled back into their orbit, without the automatic guilt and responsibility I would have felt before. As I reflect on this journey, I recognize that financial recovery is in many ways simpler than emotional recovery. Credit scores can be rebuilt according to clear metrics and timelines. Trust, once shattered, follows no such predictable path to restoration. Yet both are possible with time, intention, and support. The betrayal by my parents taught me painful but necessary lessons about boundaries, about the difference between genuine love and exploitation, disguised as family obligation, about my own strength and resilience. I would never have chosen this painful path, but having walked it, I can acknowledge the growth it forced and the clarity it ultimately provided. True family, I have learned, is built on mutual respect, on relationships where giving flows naturally in both directions, where each person's boundaries and needs are honored. It can include blood relatives, but is not defined or limited by biology. My new family celebrates my successes without expectation of benefit. They offer support without keeping score. They respect my boundaries without manipulation or guilt. In their presence, I am valued for who I am, not what I can provide. This perhaps is the greatest gift to emerge from the painful betrayal, a deeper understanding of what genuine connection looks like, and the courage to accept nothing less. The financial wounds will continue to heal with time. The insights gained and boundaries established will serve me for a lifetime. If you have experienced similar betrayal or exploitation by family members, please know you are not alone. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for your well-being. Protecting yourself financially is not abandoning family. It is establishing the healthy dynamics that should have existed all along. The journey to recovery is challenging, but possible, one step at a time. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you handle financial conflicts with relatives? Share your experiences in the comments below. I read every comment, and your stories might help others who are going through similar situations. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and recovery. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, true family is defined by respect and love, not blood or obligation.